It's so funny that you put conspiracy there. Now, I know everybody's talking about this too. Is it a conspiracy? I guess you caught somebody told me that Kurt Metzger on Jimmy's show was saying that this is just a complete conspiracy, that this is an arranged marriage or relationship. We know Taylor Swift, how she wants everybody to go vote pro-Democrat, vote for Joe Biden or Donald. She doesn't have a lot of knowledge of what's going on in politics, but she seems to want to throw a hat in the ring. And she's got a lot of Swifties out there. She can fill football stadiums, right?
Right. Well, yeah, and like the short line was they were saying Taylor Swift is a psyop. Now, I mean, I don't know what the truth is behind this, if this is an arranged relationship or something like that. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the first time. I mean, I have no reason to not assume it's a real relationship. But so Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift, they've been dating this season. He plays for the Chiefs, and then the conspiracy was that they're going to rig the NFL so that they push the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. And then when Taylor Swift's on the big stage, she can give Joe Biden a big endorsement and get everybody to show up to vote for the Democrats.
There's more to it, though, because Mr. Travis Kelsey I believe he took close to $20 million to be the representative for Pfizer and push the vaccine. He's been pushing the vaccine.
I was not aware of that.
What? Yeah, dude, he does all the vaccine commercials. Two for one. His whole pitch was, the Pfizer pitch was, you can get your vaccine and your flu shot at the same time. And it has Travis Kelsey doing all these things, two things at the same time. So he is the pro-vaccine representative player for the NFL. And then you have Swifty, who is the psyop, supposedly. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. It is possible that the two of them could have just found each other in a way. And
look, well, I mean, you could look at it this way, where maybe they weren't a psyop, but their relationship is definitely being taken advantage of and being leveraged to
weaponized.
To be weaponized effectively as a psyop. So it wasn't planned, but it's just something that, it's an opportunity and you jump on it and then you run with it, because the whole relationship's been pushed all season, and it's got people all upset that she's even at the football games or whatever. I'm like,
yeah, dude. I mean, people get pissed all the time. They constantly show her face.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a Super Bowl party, and one of my friend's girlfriends, and she's a friend of mine too, but she's a hardcore Swiftie. And her dad was there. And it's so funny because her dad mentioned that her uncle was like, Taylor Swift is getting too much. They're showing her all the time. They're just overdoing it with it. And she got mad about that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So she got pissed off about that stuff. Now, look, we understand the whole game is for the ruling class to keep people divided, to keep people pitted at each other's throats. It's divide and conquer. So there is a little truth to some of this stuff. But let's get into this whole little story over here. Take yourself down, maybe explain, and then pop on in when I say come on into.
Well, this was this conspiracy before the Super Bowl. Well, hit the next button there. If you go to the next slide. Well, lo and behold, the Kansas City Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl 25-22 against the San Francisco 49ers. So all of the conspiracy theorist people, they look right. But anyway, it's silly. I think it's silly. But
it's such a shame because Patrick Mahomes is such an awesome football player.
Right.
You've been like allowing this guy to win for so long. That's a long game you have, Jayme. That's a long game that you have to play.
It totally is.
He's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL by far. Sometimes I don't even think it's close. So, I mean, it's really got to be fixed and fixed for years if they're really trying to pull this one off.
People have been talking about it being fixed for years because there's always a lot of coincidences that happen, and people say, oh, the refs did this or that because they wanted to help this team win. Well, you get that almost every year.
You have the Hamlin situation last year, right, where everybody was saying, oh, this is a psyop, the Hamlin for the Buffalo Bills going down and then popping up, almost pronounced dead at one point. Now he's okay. So, I mean, this is some crazy stuff over here.
Right. So we all know that there's this conspiracy theory, and the Biden administration apparently knew about it because when Kansas City won the Super Bowl, the Joe Biden account posts this tweet, which says, just like we drew it up. And he's obviously trolling all the people who are pushing this conspiracy theory, thinking that, oh, it's all about Taylor Swift getting out there to endorse the Democrats and Joe Biden, so we could push this thing forward and push our agenda forward. So Joe Biden's a team definitely decides to jump in and troll on this.
I mean, look, the mainstream media got onto this too as well. Jonathan Capehart in that video that we played last week when he had an interview with Gavin Newsom, he was like, these people with the Taylor Swift thing, are they crazy or whatnot? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, laughed it off a little bit, but smiled and smirked. So it definitely seems like they've either weaponized it or it's part of the plan, but it is kind of crazy that they're talking about this shit.
Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't have just said, "Oh, congratulations, Kansas City, on your big win. Way to go." Because while Joe Biden posted that tweet, we can go to the next slide and we can look into foreign policy. What's going on in the rest of the world? Well, we have Rafah in Israel, and everybody by now knows that during the Super Bowl, Israel decided to bomb Rafah, and you can see here on the map, Rafah is all the
Everybody
way.
does not know that.
Well,
So most people should know it by now.
everybody
And we're
should
going to
know
explain
that.
it again
Right.
just in case you missed it. But the people who are watching this show now that maybe might not have watched other independent media shows that got into a lot of context and nuance before in the past and only watched mainstream media, it was nowhere to be found, to be seen, to be talked about. And for quite some time, you've heard the name Rafah crossing, the Rafah border crossing. That is the border between Egypt and Israel, or occupied Palestine, or whatever you want to call it. That's the crossing where a lot of people were told to go. And as people were moving there at one point, it seemed like Israel was bombing people going there.
Right.
But
So
pretty much,
that's the deal here.
good. Put
Rafah
your
is the
face up. Come
place.
on in real quick.
Okay, Rafah is the place where Israel told the Palestinian civilians they could move there or go there as refugees to be safe from all the violence that's occurring in the rest of Gaza. But
Yes. They've been pretty much
Ernest-
pushed down south to
Right.
Rafah. The majority of people are in Rafah, right?
right, and then but they decided that they're going to start bombing the place where they told everybody they could go to be safe. And they did it during the Super Bowl while Americans weren't paying attention. But the rest of the world, they were paying attention. They were watching exactly what was going down because there's a lot of live streams of it on Twitter. I mean, I got one clip here. I didn't want to get too graphic here, but it just shows some of the stress that the people were going through.
I got to say this much too, while you're loading that up too as well, as I get these segment ready, so people out there understand what's going on, right? So I would never did this type of work my whole life. I was in the restaurant business, and I excelled at it. I was at the top of my game when it came to service, the service part of the restaurant industry, teaching service, teaching it to managers how to manage service, teaching leaders how to perform good service, same with bartenders, teaching the front of the house hostess how to work, teaching busboys what their abilities are to do and stuff like that. And you should probably make this before we do this. You want to probably go full screen, but 1 second. As I started doing this work and I start doing these segments, when I put together Amy, I say to myself, what questions need to be answered? What's my thesis? What am I trying to get across? As I'm thinking today, driving home, coming back to get ready to do the show, I start thinking to myself, what thesis do I get out of this? I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about. There are people who are saying, well, really, this isn't about Hamas. This is about Israel, and a genocide and ethnically cleansing Palestinians and stuff. But what message is really out there? I mean, the United States is providing Israel with all these weapons and they're doing what they're doing. I mean, is it just like, holy cow, this government is just psycho that they're going to really bomb the Rafah border crossing? I mean, I'm lost for words, Jayme. Go ahead.
I mean, I feel like we have a rogue government. They're taking over and doing things that the people don't want, and the government is supposed to work for the people. But that's obviously not the case of what's going on anymore. I mean, if it wasn't clear before, I think it's clear now.
How can they say Hamas when they're doing this? All right, because there's no Hamas hanging out in Rafah. Let's go full screen on this video here. I did see this video. This is sometimes this stuff is hard to watch.
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, it has the translation of what she's saying too. All right. We'll go full screen.
ليش بقصفونا؟ قالوا لنا هنا منطقة آمنة وجينا عليه. ليش بقصفونا؟ قالوا لنا ارحلوا. ليش هيك؟ حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل في كل واحد موقف.
Why are they striking us? They told us to be safe since we came here. Why are they striking us? They should have told us to leave. Why is this happening?
So this is just like one of the videos, just one of the videos that's that was being shown like while the Super Bowl is going on. If you weren't paying attention to the Super Bowl and you were looking at Twitter, you were just seeing tons of stuff like this. I mean, there were actually pictures of the bombings, like people torn in half. It is really disturbing, and and I know a lot of Americans are just going to miss it simply because they were busy, they were doing something else.
I'm confession. I went to a friend's house to watch the Super Bowl. Paid attention to the halftime show, which I know a lot of people think it's a satanic ritual. I did. It was one of those weekends that I just wanted to kind of get outside of what was going on. And I missed this live, and I saw this after. And this is some hard stuff to handle. So just like Donald Trump, people would say Donald Trump doesn't get in trouble for telling a lie. Donald Trump gets in trouble for telling the truth, letting it slip out, right? Like those were the things that the ruling class and the military industrial complex would get mad at. Like, dude, you weren't supposed to say that. This is a slip where Joe Biden tells the truth. And it just paints a picture. I know that the government and the Biden administration can go back and go, he just slipped. It's Joe Biden, But this really says a lot here. Go ahead and roll it, man.
All right, let's do it.
The King and I also discussed the situation in Rafah. As I said yesterday, our military operation in Rafah, the major military operation in Rafah. The King and I also discussed this.
So the gaffe there is that he's saying this is a U.S. military. It's our military operation. Because I think he is telling the truth. This is the Freudian slip. They're trying to.
That's the King of Jordan, right? And the King of Jordan said before this that this can't happen. They need to stop. He was there to plead with the President of the United States and say, do what you can do to hold Israel accountable, to slow them down, to stop them. And Dark Brandon makes the slip.
Yeah, definitely. And then it just backs up the thing that everybody knows, where that the United States is backing this effort in Israel right now. Everything that Israel's doing to Gaza, the United States supports it unconditionally. So let's put this in context of foreign policy. You're not paying attention to football or the Super Bowl. You're on the other side of the world. You see what Israel's doing to Rafah, the place where they told people they would be safe. And then while that happens, the President of the United States posts this tweet, just like we drew it up. And
now let's be honest. They're going to say, Jayme, right, that this tweet was all about Taylor Swift being happy with, Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs winning, but it really has a different meaning and it hits a certain different way. Correct me if I'm wrong, brother. I'll let you do that.
Mm-hmm.
For people who were paying attention and saw what happened in Rafah. Am I right or am I right?
Right.
Am I right or am I right?
You're definitely right. And it just, as an American, it's just, this is a really bad look. And I don't want I don't want people to think that we're like the bad guys. But I mean, when you do that stuff like that, I mean, he looks evil like Voldemort. How are people not supposed to look at that and see what's going on and think, oh my God, the US is just openly evil now? I mean, especially when we've seen some of the stuff that's come directly out of Israel, where they're totally gleeful and endorsing their the genocide that they're committing like that. They're owning it. They're posting it on the internet for the whole world to see. and they're basically telling everybody you can't do anything about this. So from a foreign policy standard, I mean, we all know that post was about football, but the rest of the world doesn't know that. And they see something like that coming from the president of the United States. It just confirms everything they believe. And it's just a boneheaded thing for the White House to put out there. I mean, we all know Joe Biden didn't do that. It was his staff, obviously. But it's his responsibility. Then those people work directly for him.
It's sad. Like I said before, doing the show, right? I say to myself, what's my thesis for this story? What message am I trying to get across? What questions do I need to answer? And I think there's a lot of people out there who have pointed the finger and said, see, we said this from the get-go. This is not about Hamas. And anybody who plays that Hamas card over and over again, first of all, I'd like anybody to justify to me. I would like somebody to explain to me their justification that even if after Hamas, how come it's okay to kill so many civilians? Like, what justifies that? And I've heard RFK say his piece about, well, this is one of the only chances they got. If they stop this and they pull back, Hamas is going to gain sympathy, rebuild, whatnot, and it's going to all start all over again. But I still don't see it as a justification whether you're that desperate or not to get Hamas. And we all know this. And this is something when I was on the Jimmy Dore show, Kurt Metzger would say all the time. He does not care because we understand that the Israeli government, including the one that's there right now with Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi himself, supported and funded Hamas. Ron Paul talked about it on the floor of Congress. You have no alibi. You have no excuse. I mean, it's hard not to believe those people out there. And that's up for you to decide, ladies and gentlemen, whether there's an ethnic cleansing genocide because the because the Israelis want that land. That's up for you to decide, not for us. Our job here is just to give you the facts and give you the truth. And Jayme did an amazing job putting this segment together to just say, well, how do you think people are going to look at us? So that is that. Let's take a quick break, Jayme, unless you want to say anything else. I mean, I think you made
that sums the whole thing up. It's like our side just keeps denying, saying we don't support this genocide, but we're funding the side that's committing the genocide, and then we try to also say we're going to fund the aid, and it's like why
it's like a guy who cheats on his girlfriend. I don't mean to keep cheating on you, man. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Like,
it's not going to happen again, and it's constantly happening.
It constantly happens.
If you're funding both sides, then that means you want the thing to happen. Like, you're only funding the humanitarian side of it because you just trying to get some brownie points. You want to look better in the eyes of certain people. But there's no point in giving humanitarian aid if you're going to keep blowing these people up. What's the point of a pause? It should just help the people there if you're just going to blow them up after the pause is over. It needs to be over. Okay. Well, I'm done.
Let's just roll right into this next section, guys. So, Jayme, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
You got it. You get it ready to take it down. I'll set it up. Thank you so much, Jayme, for your opinions.